Yes, I'm live. Um, well, brothers and sisters, those of you listening out there in cyberspace, whether it's in YouTube land, on Facebook, or anywhere else in social media, or in the comments section, well, welcome to my video tonight. The topic is niggas destroy a good thing, but blame white people for it. Well, I have to say this, but that is definitely a true reality. And for those of you who concur, just sit back and watch because I'm not going to have too long because I just want to make a quick summary of what I'm basically talking about. And for those of you who don't agree, you can also sit back and listen. And whatever your opinions is, hey, you have a right to them, but just at least sit back and listen and try to take in with reason on what I'm saying. But however, even if you choose not to do that in that manner, just sit back and listen anyway, because this is for those of you who are dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America. This is directly to you, and you need to hear this, whether you agree with it or not. But it's the reality, and it's just a reminder of why we're steadily, not progressing as a people and going forward, or rather moving forward in our progress as a people toward full liberation from our over 400-year-old Caucasian slave oppressor. And this is why we're going to continue on suffering and going through what we're going through as a dark-skinned group of people in this country who are, I'm speaking of as dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America. And I just also want to piggyback off a video earlier that our good brother Tali Gibbon Rod, who I'm an assistant to on Reality Temples Ministries on Earth, you know, um, spoke on, which was called the Nation of Islam uh, has hatred for uh, African black beauty, or something to that effect. But anyway, I saw the video, and it was very informative, of course. And I seen a lot of people in the comment section, and there was a lot of constructive back and forth criticism, but also, it wasn't as ignorant as usually of what I see in them comment sections. But neither here nor less. I'm not really worried about the trolls, because trolls is gonna be trolls. People is gonna say negative things, whether it's people is gonna say things that they agree with in terms of that. That don't really matter to us who's coming from this platform of Reality Temple Ministries on Earth and Operation Exodus Mississippi. But however, the main thing that matters is those of us who wish to get on this soul train called Operation Exodus Mississippi, so that we could carve out a new reality for ourselves and our people in later generations that will come after us. I mean, that's what's more important than all the other rhetoric, combined, that don't really mean nothing to this campaign of OEM. But however, moving along, I wanted to just say this, that he touched on some points, about how the Nation of Islam, in regards to their plot of having something to do with the assassination of Malcolm X, and how they kept basically pointing the finger at the United States government, FBI or whatever, as being involved in Malcolm X's assassination. But when all is said and done, the seeds were sold by the Nation of Islam, through the words, of course, publicly made by Louis Farrakhan as Malcolm X being worthy of death. And and other things that he said, like one would kill for those were killed for someone they love or whatever, all them things basically that Farrakhan said, which helped, pave the way for the assassination of Malcolm X, which is clearly no doubt. And also, the fact that Brother Talik reminded us that, he acknowledged what happened in terms of his responsibility in the part that he played in Malcolm X assassination, but he never, literally apologized for it, nor for the Nation of Islam as a whole, far as their involvement in the assassination of Malcolm X. Now, with that said, Malcolm X was a leader in his own right because, like Brother Talik said, had it not been for Malcolm X, the Nation of Islam wouldn't even have went far as it had went, nor would it be universally known throughout the world if it wasn't for Malcolm X. And even those in the Nation of Islam who come from the older generation, that was even before Malcolm X, and when Malcolm X was around, and even after he passed on, and to the ancestors and those who even came after him that's not so close-minded, that do have an ideal that Malcolm X, part in which took place in developing the Nation of Islam as an organization is the reason primarily why the Nation of Islam was so, charismatically known throughout the world and still is today, is because of Malcolm X and not because of Elijah Muhammad and, and those that came along with Elijah Muhammad when the organization first began in the early 1930s. So, basically what the Nation of Islam, in fact, did was they killed off a leader in Malcolm X that was, the pivotal point of that organization, like I said, lasting long as it did. They killed off their best leader because Farrakhan really represents nothing like what Malcolm X did. In his legacy, like the brother pointed out in the video, would never even come close as to being great as Malcolm X was when you weigh out the history of both of these brothers, as far as Malcolm X and Farrakhan being concerned, And the truth of the matter is, is that, like the brother also said too, whether the Nation of Islam thinks so or not, the fact is that Malcolm X Louis Farrakhan had something to do with Malcolm's assassination, and he basically got away with murder. And like I'm gonna say, this is not the first time that, someone got away with killing somebody, and it's not the last time that somebody is going to get away with murdering somebody. And another point that was also brought up is because you killed somebody don't necessarily mean that you always get caught either. That's another thing that was strongly pointed out. And I just want to remind everyone that in this case that you know, just like with George Zimmerman getting away with murdering our brother Trayvon Martin in cold blood, just like the cop Darren Wilson, who got away with killing Mike Brown, them racist cops in New York City that got away with murder blatantly when they killed Eric Gardner, you know, and you know, them cops who got away with blatantly murdering Sean Bell, and also, I mean, and the list could go on. I mean, the cops that got away with blatantly murdering that brother Austin Sterling down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, a couple of years ago. I mean, like I said, and the cop who also blatantly and outrightly got away with murder for murdering our brother Philando Castile up there in Minnesota a couple of years ago. I mean, so like I said, it's the list could go on. I mean, it don't stop there. I mean, we have many murderers that just killing us and they getting away with it. So to sit up there and say that, Farrakhan did not murder or have anything directly to do with Malcolm X's assassination would definitely be faulty as well as questionable, because once again, like I said, even in support of what the brother said, is that just because you murder somebody don't mean that you're gonna always get caught or at least get sent to prison over it. I'll put it that way as well. And it's many, even far as with the common street criminal, we see all the time how many murders across America is unresolved every day in this country, because simply the criminal got away with murder, and that's just point blank. However you want to chop it up, or whatever, it's simple as that. And so, but to turn around and murder somebody and then turn around and blame another party or another race or another entity, such as the government or another group of people, as far as white races or whatever in the government, and say, well, they had Malcolm X killed and they was behind it. Well, it's like this here. At the end of the day, just like Malcolm X's daughter said in the interview with Farrakhan sitting right beside her when they were being interviewed by, I think, Mike Douglas, one of them commentating analysts, like for 60 Minutes. And, this was around the time when it had been almost 30 years since Malcolm X's assassination, and around the time when, one of Malcolm X's other daughters, tried to supposedly, allegedly have Louis Farrakhan killed. And this is what brought all this on, so they ended up having an interview, and Malcolm X's daughter basically said, while all the blame was being cast on the government, but every time she looked up, she only saw people that looked darker than her in skin pigmentation, as far as having something to do with her father's murder, where no white person whatsoever could be seen or as to have been involved in this, And then I want to also point out something as well, that all the time, if you're saying that the government has something to do with it, then why is it initially constantly coming out of your mouth and saying that this brother Malcolm is worthy of death? or that his tongue should be delivered in the envelope to Elijah Muhammad in Chicago. I mean, these type of statements coming from various directions. I mean, and that should spell something very openly to question, just the mere accusation that the white man had something to do with Malcolm's assassination, and only the white man or the government had something to do with Malcolm X's assassination, what obviously leads to this being very absurd and, of course, false, is more plainly put in, as far as a better lack of word term of saying. And so, like I said before, you know, this has been happening throughout our history as a people. You know, I mean, they said the same thing about Clarence 13X, who was the founder of the 5% Nation after he separated from the Nation of Islam years prior to that, where to come to find out he was murdered by somebody that looked like him, that was dark skinned down over a gambling debt gone bad or whatever the case was with that, because that's what part one of the brother's devices was that he was into gambling. But neither here nor less, he got murdered by somebody that looked like him. I mean, and then we could sit up and say that, that the white man had Noble Drew Ali, founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, killed back in the 20s. Okay. But there were those, because there was factions that was dividing the Moorish Science Temple of America, even during his period of time when he was around as the sole leader of that organization. Okay. And it come to find out his ex-followers directly participated in his assassination. So, I mean, it is what it is. And then when you look around, you want to quote, I mean, I'm not saying that the government did not, or COINTELPRO, whatever, did not play their own part in helping to tear down certain black organizations, that they saw as a possible or potential threat to their way of establishment and order of things in this country. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this is that when you turn around and you kill off one of your own so-called leaders, and then be so quick to assume that the white man has something to do with it, even because of that, it's still questionable. That's all I'm saying. It's still questionable. Because, I mean, let's say, hey, just like in the case with Clarence 13X, let's say, hey, I'm going to use him as an example. Even if the white man wanted him dead, they ain't the ones that initially had something to do with orchestrating the whole plan as far as killing them. Now, they merely might have gave the okay, like, hey, do what you got to do, kill him or whatever. We don't know nothing or whatever, just kill him or whatever, do what you got to do. But the initial primary thing, as even in the case of course, Malcolm X assassination, was that the plan was literally primarily orchestrated by those that look like him, as far as being other darker skinned, descendants of slaves born in America. And that's just clearly something that needed to be reminded to the people about, or that the people need to be reminded about, and to stop being so quick of jumping to quick assumptions that all of a sudden, oh, okay, the white man had so and so killed. Well, tell me this then, you know, with all this stuff that the late former Yahweh Black Hebrew Israelite leader Yahweh Ben Yahweh was doing in Florida, far as sending his hitchmen around, breaking people's backs and bones with bats and killing them and massacring people because they didn't have their way with them like they wanted to and all this. I mean, sending out hit squads to kill off people, even including other followers in his organization. I mean, and doing all other type of incorrupt things. But yet, you said that the white man had something to do with that, which is why he got took down along with a couple other people in that organization by the white man. But first of all, the actions that them people in his organization demonstrated showed that the white man did not initially plan that. All that did was just open up the doors for the white man to come in and do what they finally felt they needed to do, to dismantle this organization, okay? But we know, for those of us that know about the history of Yahweh Ben Yahweh and his organization that he was leading, called the Hebrew Israelites, under his leadership at that time, was very incorruptible and did more incorruptible things than good things for the people of that organization or the people that they was trying to draw to that organization. You see what I'm saying? So once again, I could throw out quite a bit of examples, in this manner. I mean, it's like an organization I once belonged to that people used to compare to Yahweh Ben Yahweh's, which was the Nuwabians, under Dr. Malachi Z. York, who is now incarcerated himself with 135 years at a U.S. Super maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado, I mean, it was a lot of incorruption that went on in that organization. Like I said, in the case with Yahweh Ben Yahweh's organization, that was more so incorrupt than it was as far as benefiting those that were followers and students under Malachi C. York in that organization, as I was one myself at one time or another, And at the beginning of my introduction into his teachings, I got a whoop for that, which is why I left from within that circle, far as their living communal, uh, part of that organization was concerned. So I never fortunately went back to that, even though I stayed around as far as being associated with them. But I did not never move back within the living communal quarters of that organization, as they had set up, during that period of time when they were known as Nubian Islamic Hebrews or Ansar Allah community back in the 80s and 90s, before they made their so-called metamorphosis to becoming the Wahabians and Egyptologists and all that other added stuff that they had going with their teachings, even with Christianity, Hebrewism, and Mosaism, and all that kind of stuff. So, like I said before, but they did, but they quick to point out that the government had something to do with Malachi York's present incarceration and the helping of bringing down that organization, which is almost nearly defunct as Yahweh Ben Yahweh's Hebrew Israelite factional organization is today. But the point I'm making is that they blamed the government for taking that organization down, starting with its leader, Dr. Malachi Z. York. But they not talking about the incorruption that was going on in that organization, as well as especially with the incorruption that was proven during Dr. Malachi Z. York's criminal trial. And the fact that before he even went to trial, he pleaded guilty before he changed his guilty plea that led to the criminal trial where he got convicted at and eventually got sentenced and sent to the penitentiary afterwards, you know, as a result. Anyway, but he pleaded guilty at first. And the point is that there has been never no court case ever in the history of America, ever in the annals of the history of the United States of America. I don't care if it was on a federal or state level. And Malachi York pleaded guilty on the state level before the feds took over the case. Okay. Why are you going to plead guilty for if you know you didn't do nothing? There have been plenty of people that even, and for Malachi York to have claimed that he was under mental distress, it has been people that have been up under even worse type of mental illnesses and distress or whatever. In his case, and they didn't plead guilty. If anything, they pled insanity, but they did not plead guilty. So, all that crap there is another indicator, is why black folks should understand and realize that they can't just keep on blaming a white man for the inconsistencies and corruption that goes on among us as a people. And, I would like to also piggyback with that said by when Brother Talik in that video spoke about the reason why these so-called pro-blackity black, RGB, Afrocentric niggas don't care to even want to look into the ideal of connecting with Liberia and West Africa, which is a country in West Africa that was started by ex so-called American Negro slaves from here in the United States, being that that's their own people that they will be able to connect with over there out of them all them other places in Africa that we don't have no direct connection with like that. It's because they're scared to change for real. They're scared to leave from within the house a slave master. Just like a child growing up, becoming 18 or 21, scared to leave out of his mama and daddy's house. And that's a clear statement point that, if we really think about it, just in this simple simplicity, is nothing but the truth. Whether you try to dispute it or not, it's nothing but the truth. But the thing is that, we have to wake up to this fact and understand that we are, in fact, a people that is scared of change, especially for those who claim that want liberation, but truly through action show that they don't want liberation for selves or kind. So this is why we've been catching so much hell from this platform called Operation Exodus Mississippi. And, which I'm in concurrence with, that has not even gotten up off the ground yet. But yet, we've been catching more flack. Not saying that in the future that the government may want to look into, what we're doing to try to see how they could bring our approach toward liberating our people to an end. Once this, OEM platform is able to make it off the ground. Okay. But the thing is, we got niggas that's already at work doing the same thing. And even much more worse in their own way. And the thing about it is that these things need to really be paid close attention to, because the fact of the matter is that we can't constantly keep on blaming the Caucasian. Like I've said before, on the occasion, in one or two other videos I've done concerning this subject, is that we're not, totally bound by chains like our ancestors was during historic chattel slavery. We have choices today where we could carve out a future of a better existence for ourselves as people in this nation, or even if we choose to go to Africa, which primarily, of course, were like Liberia, where our people over there already got something set up, who comes from the same descendancy chart that we come from as descendants of slaves, as dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America. But yet we're scared of change, which is the bottom line, and which that boils down to. Okay. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, and to point out something else too, which I'm in concurrence with what was said, piggybacking off of what the brother said in that other video that I mentioned earlier when I started this one, was that, a lot of us don't want to, take responsibility like grown men and women, by working to carve out a reality for ourselves and future generations, where it won't be no room or space to blame the white man. And that's what that's all about. Because they know if their attempts and whatever they doing fails toward carving out a better existence for us and our future generations fail, they know that they can't blame the white man. And that's all that boils down to. And I'm going to repeat it again. If we try to put ourselves like with this situation with Operation Exodus, Mississippi, or connecting with our fellow dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America that are over in Liberia, in a country which was started by former ex-slaves or Negro slaves from the United States. The fact of it is that they know if something failed along the way, they know that they can't blame the white man. And that's what they mostly fear. So they always want to have something to lean back on, to blame when it comes to failure, because we've always known as this dark-skinned descendants of slaves born in America, the only thing we've known is to be dependent on somebody else and not to be responsible for ourselves. And so it's hard for us, especially with the fact that we've been over here for over 400 years, caught in that trap zone. It's difficult for us to be responsible enough to accept that. So we don't want to step outside the box and have to deal with that reality. But sooner or later, we ain't gonna have no, either take that choice or we gonna simply be annihilated totally as a people. Like I always say, exterminated as a people. That's gonna be piled up on top of one another in a mass grade pine box. And that's just that simple, you know. So like I said before, we could keep playing, you know, we could keep playing and all that other stuff with our freedom. And hey, you know, I just want to just throw that in there, you know, and stuff. And you know, we got to just stop this foolishness. And with that said, and my closing, like our late great ancestor Don Cornelius would say, love, peace, and soul. Audi 500.